So one of the challenges that we're facing a lot of now that we are putting assignments online is how do you get these assignments that have traditionally been worksheets, where whether it was a Word document, a Google document, or a PDF, it was easy enough to get to your students. But now, not all of those are easy for students to interact with. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with a PDF. So really what's important is that you make sure you have a digital version of your assignment. If you have a paper copy and you're going to scan it, what I would recommend you do is scan it as an image. That way it saves as either a JPEG or a PNG, which is an image file. And this will cut out an extra step of having to both scan it and do this. If you already have a digital copy, you're just going to start here. So this is an assignment from the Stanford History Education Group, great for middle school, high school social studies, and it's free and really good quality work with quick assignments for students. So here is an assignment. So kids are looking at a photograph. They then have some questions to answer. So how do I make this where my students can now do this online? What I'm going to do is I'm going to make an image of this using a tool called the Snipping tool. Before I do that though, I can't scroll down as I'm taking a picture. So what I want to do is I'm going to minimize my screen. I use Control minus to do that. So that's the button right next to the 0. So Control minus. And then I'm going to find the snipping tool, which for me is down at the bottom of my toolbar. You might not have it saved there. I do because I use it multiple times every day. So if you're just down in this bottom search bar, type snipping tool. This will be available on your computer, not on your Chromebook. It's a slightly different tool. I'd recommend working on your Windows machine rather than the Chromebook for this. It just makes it a little faster and easier. So I click on the snipping tool. If this is something that you realize that you might be using a lot and you want it easy to access, then down at the bottom when it's open, if you right click on it and just click unpin, mine says unpin, yours would say pin to taskbar. And you can do that with any program you use a lot, and it'll just stay down here at the bottom, making it easy for you to click on. So now that I have this size that I want, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make a copy. I am not going to include those lines because the students aren't going to write directly on the lines. That would be a bunch of really little text boxes. There's easier ways for me to do this. So I'm going to then have the option to either copy and paste or save. I am going to copy because I'm putting this directly into Google. If I was putting this into Canvas, I would need to save. With Google, I can just copy and paste in. So what I need to do now is I need a new Google slide. So drive.google.com. I'm going to open Google Slides. I'm going to change my layout to blank. And this I really want to be more of the size of a sheet of paper so that I'm not cramming everything. These are much more horizontal, whereas we're used to vertical. This paper was set up in the portrait or more vertical orientation. So I want to make it set up that way too. So what I did, I should have told you what I was doing. I come to File, Page Setup. Now the default is the 16 by 9 widescreen. I want to go to Custom, and I'm just going to make this like a sheet of paper. So I want this to be 8.5 by 11. So now it's got a setup much more like a sheet of paper. Then what I'm going to do, because I don't want kids moving a bunch of stuff around, I'm going to go to Slide, Edit Master. So this is the key of turning worksheets into something interactive. If we've got the image on there and then we add text boxes and stuff on top of it, it becomes a mess if we don't move it here. And then I can exit out of theme to give myself a little bit more space. I'm just going to paste. I can make this a little bit bigger if I want. And then there are two different ways to do text boxes. There's this way of putting it in here called insert placeholder. I prefer this method because it lets kids know exactly where they should start typing. And then you probably want the body text placeholder. And then you just come in here and you make your text box. You can change the size. So if it's not as big as you want, you can change it. Now, what I don't like about this is you see all these different levels on here. Kids aren't going to see it, but when you're building, it can get messy really quick. So if you're building something that's going to have lots of places for kids to put information, I really recommend starting at the bottom and working your way up to the top, because otherwise, I'll delete this one, but we'll put in just some sample ones. So say kids needed to put stuff up here. You can see, okay, I guess it's hiding behind the image, but you're going to have all of this different information here. Oops. So it can get a little bit messy when you've got all of that stuff. And so you can kind of faintly see it. It's hidden by the picture. But what you're going to do is end up with a mess on here. So I'm going to actually delete these because I don't really need those. But then when you go and look on the student side, so to do that, I'm just going to click exit here. For my student side, all it says is click to add text. So that's really nice for my students. They know exactly where it is that they're supposed to type. They're not hunting for a text box. So then this one, I also want to make blank. So I still have my other column, or not my other column, but my other page. So if I come here, I'm going to use my snipping tool again. I don't need those lines because students won't be writing on that. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come in here. I click on slide, edit master, and these can be as elaborate as you want. So you can put lots of different colors and shapes and stuff. And actually, I want a new one, so I don't know why I scrolled down to that. So to get a new one, I'm just going to press Control M. I don't want this here, so I click on it and press delete. I'll make this a little bit bigger, but not that big. I'm just going to press Control Z to fix that because I moved it this way, which kind of distorted it. I need to move it like this. From the corners, it's going to work better. And then I need to add another text box. So here I'll show you a different way that you can do a text box. So I'm going to exit here. All right, it did not show up. So let's try layout. Here it is. So one of the things that you'll know, so if you're making like some sort of template that you're going to use on several different slides, they'll show up here. So if I wanted to bring this page back again, which doesn't really make sense for this, but if it was you're filling this out for maybe you've got a character chart for lots of different characters or something, you could easily come back and then just add it again. But for me, that doesn't make sense. So I'm going back to layout and I'm going to click here. So now I am going to add a text box here, or you could also add a shape. Text box is probably going to be the easiest. But you'll notice here, kids aren't necessarily going to know it's there until they click on it. I could go and add a border. So if you're going to add text boxes this way, I strongly encourage you to add a border. So that is that pencil line around it. If I want to make it thicker, so you want something obvious, you can decide how thick you want it to be, but at least put a color around it. So a 3-point is pretty obvious. And then they just know to start clicking here and they can type their response. What I don't like about this, though, is as a kid's typing, they can accidentally drag it and move it around. Whereas on this one, oh, I guess they can here too. So never mind. But I like that it just says add text. It's quick, it's easy from the master. Whereas here, I have to go and change things a little bit more to make it where the kids know this is where I need to type. So both ways work. Both ways are just fine. It just kind of depends on your personal preference for how you want to do that. That's an easy way to add some different activities for kids to be able to work within their Google Slides. Make sure you check out the video for how to then put this in Canvas as an assignment, where it will automatically assign a copy to every kid for them to work on their own. They don't mess with your master. The one last thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you have your share settings on. So you have to give it a name. So you need to make sure that you've got your share settings on. So mine says restricted, only people added can add this link. I'm not adding all of my different students because then they're also going to be sharing copies with me, or they're going to be changing my copy. So what I want to do is I want to click change link to Delaware Community Schools. That makes it available to everyone within the school corporation. There's also other options where anyone with the link, if this is something that is not copyrighted and that you want to share with people at other schools, you're more than welcome to do that. But I would recommend just changing it to the Delaware Community Schools. That way everyone gets the copy that they need done, and then you can go embed that in Canvas.